And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. Oh, I almost said deeper dive. I wish it was 5 o'clock. NBA Strategy Show. It is Friday, December 15th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We're brought to you by Underdog. And we are closing out this work week with a almost perfect slate. 8 games on the docket for today. But I am once again going to hit you guys with my chief complaint for everything that we're doing right now. This would be a fantastic 7-game slate that ends at 8 p.m., but instead, 2 hours after the tip of the final game, we get another game, which is 3 hours after lock. There's no need to include this. Drop the game, 7-game slate, it's perfect, and then everybody gets 2 hours back on a Friday night. It doesn't get any easier than this. Do it now, DraftKings. Listen to me. I'm the smart one here. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, agree or disagree?
You're not doing shit with your Friday night, neither am I, so I don't care.
That's not true. I do things. I get dragged to all sorts of shit. I had to work on my laptop to make lineups at a Christmas event 2 days ago. I end up getting dragged to things. It would be much easier for me if I didn't have to think, got to keep this laptop with me so I can make my 10 p.m. Knicks Suns swaps at 9:30.
I do generally agree, though.
Yeah, it's like if you have a couple games, I get it. A 2-hour gap between the 7th game and the 8th game and a 3-hour gap from tip to that tip, it's not necessary. It's not changing anything. Nobody's more or less likely to play this slate if you drop that game. It is simply just a mechanism that makes life easier. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. I hate it. I hate it. But here we are. Anything good for you last night?
No. Bubbled the 555 tournament, broke even on the night slate, pretty much broke even on the main slate. Best finish on the main was, I think, 33rd with like Chet and Olynyk being completely mediocre.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just kept getting weirder and weirder last night when we started getting more and more lineups. You got Kessler in, you got THT in. That was fun. You got Pajemski in. Shout out to Andrew Wiggins getting demoted. Who saw
Klay
that
Thompson
one coming?
Hitting Klay Thompson playing like it's 2015.
Yeah, just nuts. Shockingly, Alex Caruso gets injured. Ayo Dosunmu drops 45 fantasy points.
Yeah.
Mere days after dropping the full bagel across the board.
Karis LeVert did what you talked about and didn't matter. It might have been, I don't even know if he was in the winning lineup. He was 1% owned.
35 minutes for LeVert, 26 and a quarter fantasy points. Kind of bothers me that I hit that on the strategy show and the deeper
26?
What did I say? Oh, 46. Sorry.
Yeah.
46 and a quarter fantasy points. Yeah, it's just, we spoke that one clean into existence.
Someone tagged me on Twitter today saying that I probably had a good night because of what Scoot Henderson did. I had 0 Scoot Henderson by the time we got the lock.
Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't happening. It was pretty hard. It helped me that Kawhi or Paul George ended up out. It got me off of the like 90% Anthony Simons that I had, and he was awful.
Yeah, he's terrible.
So, you ready to talk some basketball?
Yeah.
Let's do it. It's that easy. New Orleans Pelicans, 7-point favorites in Charlotte, 231 total. For the Pels, we are waiting on one key piece of information, and that would be the status of one Zion Williamson. He is questionable. He did miss the most recent game as well. Cody Zeller is available. 10% ownership coming into Jose Alvarado, to Joval, to Zion, to Herb Jones, minimal to Brandon Ingram. What are you seeing here for the Pels? I'm not really getting these guys, but I thought I might have a little bit. There's just better places on the slate, I think.
Yeah, Boom Bust Tool's not refreshing for me. Should have it in a second, I think. But yeah, I mean, Jovel's somebody I've been getting to a lot recently in general. Played another 33 minutes last game, but he's getting 10% ownership, 9% chance of being optimal. He just kind of looks fine at 7,100. Same goes for Zion at 7,900. Same goes for Ingram and McCollum, though they're a little bit more difficult to get to, it looks like. Alvarado, like you said, at 3,600, played 18 minutes, including garbage time last game. Strikes me as one of those value pieces where he's getting some traction at 10 a.m. because we haven't gotten news in places, but he's still only projected for 15 DraftKings points. That usually just doesn't really hold.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a single share of anybody from the Pelicans. Not that I would have a problem with it or anything. You give me any one of BI or Herb or Joval or Zion if he's in, and that's fine. How do we want to handle these guys if Zion is out? Because we just saw this 2 nights ago. Does that become a $5,500 Trey Murphy day? Najee Marshall is 4,200 here. Dyson Daniels is 4,200. Point guard, small forward. Who stands out if we do lose Zion?
Yeah, so I mean, if we lose him first, obviously it makes Joval look better. It makes Ingram look better. It makes McCollum look better. But we saw Dyson Daniels get the start, but it was essentially a spot start. He played like 4 minutes to open the game, played 4.5 minutes to close the first half, played 7 minutes to open the second half, never came back. He was my highest owned guy on that slate. I can't believe he was actually only 25% owned on that slate. And of course, the rotation went the way that it did. But at this point, I think you kind of, not that that rotation is set in stone, but I think you at least go into this if Zion's out, expecting Najee Marshall and Trey Murphy to play significant minutes and Dyson Daniels to be the third of the group, even if he starts. Again, not that that's set in stone, but we just saw it play out, and he was aggressively behind the other two. So I think, Murphy at 5,500 would certainly look pretty good. Najee at 4,200 would certainly still be a solid enough value as well. One thing that did stand out too about that game, though, Herb Jones was in foul trouble, particularly in the first half. So Najee Marshall's playing time's a little bit misleading, at least in the first half. Herb Jones only played 20 minutes total, which is something that you're just never going to expect. That's not something where, if Zion's out today, you're not saying like, oh yeah, Herb Jones is going to play low 20s minutes. So that's obviously something that you expect to change. But the thing that really stands out is that he subbed back in with 2 minutes to go in the first quarter last game, picked up his second foul, went back to the bench. So Najee Marshall played 3 minutes and 52 seconds in the first quarter and then went back to the bench. But then he came back like a minute later and played another 8 minutes because of Herb Jones foul trouble. So that is a spot where, Najee still has a path if Zion is out, but be careful assuming that he's just doing what he did last game.
There we go. Anything else here for Charlotte? Or sorry, for New Orleans.
So as far as what I'm actually getting to right now, 14% Zion's my highest owned guy here. I have 10 or 8% Alvarado, so pretty much with the field there. Only getting like 2 to 3% McCollum, Joval, Ingram at the moment. That's if Zion's in, I expect it to play out similarly in that, Zion may or may not end up being my highest owned guy from the team, but I expect it to just be, I'm sort of just getting relatively small amounts of the starters.
All righty. On the Charlotte side, I have a very different amount of these guys. I tend to have that a lot. We do have a little bit of news in that PJ Washington is questionable. Mark Williams is doubtful. The status of PJ Washington is massive because we got 40 minutes out of Nick Richards last time out when PJ Washington left early. I don't think that's going to happen again, but it might unlock JT Thor. Anyway, 25% ownership coming into Nick Richards, 25% ownership coming into Brandon Miller, around 15 to Gordon Hayward, 10 to Terry Rozier. I've got a boatload of these guys, one of them not getting as much ownership. What are you getting for Charlotte? Are you joining me in the Hornets bandwagon today?
Yeah, I'm getting a ton. Gordon Hayward coming in at 43% for me, Fields at 16, 6,500 small forward, power forward. Brandon Miller showing up 38%, Fields at 26. Shooting guard, small forward, always nice, 6K, just plenty of playing time for him. I'm getting the 26% Richards, 22% Bridges. So around the field on Richards, over the field on Bridges, who's only 7% owned, getting the 7% Washington, 5% Rozier. And like you said, if Washington is out, it's just really going to make the Nick Richards, Bridges, Hayward, Miller pieces even more appealing just because there's playing time to go around. And yeah, JT Thor probably will be in the rotation, but it's JT Thor.
So I don't have the Gordon Hayward piece. I'm under there. You'll be surprised to hear that I do have the Brandon Miller piece. He's in 72% of my lineups right now. Not that I'm surprised. I do have the Nick Richards piece, 21% owned. But the guy that I have that you don't have much of is Terry Rozier. I have 34%, 8,700 point guard, shooting guard, and he has been just nuking since LaMelo went down on a completely different level. Do I like having a giant stand on an $8,700 Terry Rozier? No, not really, but the spot is good enough. And the Hornets defense is 28th, or sorry, the Pelicans defense is 13th. That's not like all that worrisome. They're 10th in pace, so you do get a little bit of a bump up. I think it's Terry Rozier season for me. He's playing massive minutes. That's incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I like it. 7 games now where LaMelo's been out and Rozier's played 1.3 DraftKings points per minute, 37.7 minutes per game, 27% usage rate. Certainly would like to be getting to more of him than I am at the moment. Hayward in those 7 games at 1.04 DraftKings points per minute, 32.5 minutes per game. So, again, I don't mind that I'm getting to him. He is cheaper by a significant amount, but
Yeah.
the Rozier ceiling is absolutely there. Brandon Miller's at 36 minutes per game, 0.82 DraftKings points per minute in the 6 that he has played without LaMelo and with Rozier.
Oh man, gonna be brutal. Just so much Charlotte.
I'm surprised. It's still surprising me Miles Bridges isn't doing more. But in those 7 games, 0.91 DraftKings points per minute, 22% usage rate, 36 minutes per game. Like it feels like that improves at some point, but also I get why he's only 7% owned when he's $7,500. He's not playing like that guy.
What's do you have the true shooting?
No,
Okay.
I will in a second.
All right. I don't have any follow-ups if you don't.
Yeah,
So
58.5.
okay. Nothing crazy. I didn't know if like that was gonna be he's just been
Right.
like wildly inefficient for 6 games, but no, I would have thought he would have had some more usage in that time. Maybe that's just not what he's cut out to do, I guess.
Yeah, so he's the one where, like, when I look at the exposures I have right now, it's scary getting to 22% of him because I think he is overpriced for what he has done to date. But there's still that piece where it's just like, there is a lot to go around here. We are talking about a 6, 7 game sample size. It
Yeah,
wouldn't be crazy if by the time you're at game 40, it's like, oh, Bridges and Rozier have equal usage rates.
sure. Yeah, got a lot of these guys, and I'm totally okay with it. Look, they've got a lot of flexibility. Like most of these guys have an MPE. They're all like mid priced, decent enough total in the game. I think it makes sense. Oh, this next one though, this is going to be brutal. I don't. When you start to get lines of this size, it really becomes problematic to talk about. The Detroit Pistons are 16-point underdogs in Philadelphia today, 235 total. You don't see a lot of NBA games with 16-point lines. I can only imagine what would happen if this were Boston. I assume it'd be like 18 or 19. Just truly scary. No real ownership coming into the Detroit side. 9% to Asar Thompson. Basically 3 to everybody else that plays real minutes. I got 3% of Beef Stew, 3% of Asar Thompson. It's really hard to justify the Pistons today.
Yeah, and it usually is. But I'm with you. I don't think they look overly appealing. I lost where I was at, but getting to right now, 23% Ivy, which I'm assuming goes away. Kind of had issues with him in the mornings lately. We have him with a 10% chance of being optimal at 3% owned. 5,300. I doubt I really get that much of him. But I'm not getting anything else really. 5% Thompson, 3% Cunningham.
Yeah, just like they've got basically the worst implied total on the slate of teams that aren't Houston or Memphis, who are playing in a game with a 212 total. That is 45 points below the Pacers and Wizards for today. So they have low implied totals for slightly different reasons. The Pistons are just, I mean, they're on a 20-game losing streak and they're about to just get absolutely mauled in Philadelphia. So I assume this is the game they win outright.
Probably. And yeah, just to clarify again, to get back to the Ivy thing quickly, it's just that it's the same situation I had with him the other day where, we have him projected to be owned 1/5 where he quote unquote should be. We have him at 27 minutes right now. That's an aggressive projection. It's going to come down. Like that's so if for whatever reason, and you never should do this, you're watching the morning show and not watching or looking at any other content and making lineups based on the morning show, ignore how much Jaden Ivey I have right now.
Yeah, I went 24 minutes to Ivy. I don't,
Yeah,
to me, it's pretty hard to
where I would
go north of that.
because like 27, 28 is certainly in the range of outcomes, but that's
Yeah.
not the median and it's not close.
No, I don't think it is. The Philly side is here as well. Hard to get to a little bit. I think 11-8 Joel Embiid stands out as a fantastic play if you can get there. It doesn't appear anybody's getting there. He's 4% owned. Maxey is 15% owned on the FanDuel end. DeAnthony Melton is 10% owned on DraftKings for reasons, I guess, today. I have very little here, just scattered amounts of all of the starters.
Oubre is my highest owned guy, which
There you
doesn't
go.
feel great, but 23 minutes off the bench last game. We have him right now at a 10% chance of being optimal at 8% owned, 5K. I mean, the price tag's nice. I'm getting 15%, so it's not like I'm going crazy there. Getting to 9% Melton, 6K point guard, shooting guard, 10% owned, 9% chance of being optimal, 4% Maxey, 3% Embiid. Clearly, Maxey and Embiid are the guys I actually want here, but they also come with significant price tags and opportunity cost, whereas Melton and Oubre have the MPE, and they're just easier to fit into lineups.
Yeah. I wish I were getting to a little bit more Embiid. You know, you have no Jokic on the slate. You have no Luka Doncic on the slate. You have no Giannis on this slate. They are the 4 top end per minute DFS dudes. And I thought, like, okay, that's just going to make us get to Embiid by default. And for right now, we don't have the value to do it.
John P said, sure, Adam will ignore it like the Scoot Henderson yesterday.
So yeah, and this is a tough game. I mean, there's a high likelihood that Joel Embiid does not play the fourth quarter today. He does not play fourth quarters very regularly, as weird as that sounds.
But still smashes.
Yes, but still just goes insane. So weird. I just read that.
He's also averaging like 35 minutes per game.
He is. Where is it? I just read this tweet right before I got here.
34.4 minutes per game for the season.
Let me see if I can find this. It appears that I cannot.
It makes sense, though, based on his rotation, because he plays the entire third quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, he's whatever the averages were, they were really preposterous, and he has like sat out the fourth quarter of 7 or 8 of the games that he's played, which is just bonkers. But I'm starting to think I saw it on my For You tab, and at which point, oh, here it is. Joel Embiid, here it is. Why can't I make this tweet be bigger? I guess I got to rub it. Okay. Why can I not do anything here? It's actually interesting, and I can't get to it.
Jacob shared it since you can't find it or handle this on your own. Joel Embiid is averaging 35.1 points, 11.7 rebounds, and 6.7 assists in games where he does not play in the fourth quarter this season. Through 20 games, he has sat out of the fourth quarter 7 times.
Yeah, that is nuts. 35, 12, and 7 in games where he doesn't play the fourth.
Yeah. So there have been a lot of slates. There have been a lot of slates, including the last one against Detroit, where if you didn't have Embiid, you're just sitting there at halftime like, my God, I hope he doesn't play the fourth, so he only gets 65 DraftKings points.
Yeah. All righty. Anything else for Philly?
No.
All right. So next up, we're going to talk schedule for the rest of the day. Very simple. NFL strategy show coming up next at 11 a.m. Then we go back to our 2 hours of NBA coverage. NBA Deeper Dive, myself and Adam, coming up at 5 p.m. NBA Live Before Lock tonight at 6 p.m. The other thing that you guys need to do is use our avatar. Go to stokastic.com/avatar, grab our logo, put it on your DraftKings, FanDuel, Owner's Box, Yahoo account, wherever you're playing. Because if you finish in the top 3 of a contest with 5,000 or more entries, you get 1 free month of Stokastic, whatever you're looking for. I assume NBA Sims if you're watching this. It's a $200 value. Cannot be beat. We saw K2 Temple Owl. Was part of a chop on FanDuel last night. Had the logo looking good. We love seeing people pick up dubs with the Stokastic avatar. So you guys can do that as well. All you have to do is go to the site, download the image, and load it up to whichever place you're playing. Whether that's DK, FanDuel, Owner's Box, Yahoo. Just got to get in that contest with 5,000 or more. Here we go. Your Washington Wizards are going to be a part of a good one here. Indiana Pacers, 8.5-point favorites in Washington, 257 total. And that total would be way higher if the Washington Wizards offense wasn't 26th. But they are. 21% ownership coming into Miles Turner, 10 to Isaiah Jackson, 10 to Bruce Brown. I got a ton of Miles Turner. I don't have much else here in what is clearly a great spot.
I have a ton of Isaiah Jackson, which I hate, but it makes sense in the, if somehow things go poorly for Turner, you're getting a bunch of minutes for Jackson at 4,400 in a good spot. We do have him projected to be quite a bit under owned, 17% chance of being optimal, 10% ownership. So that's pushing him up for me a bit right now as well. Probably see those numbers converge a bit as the day goes on. Right now we have Jackson at just about 18 minutes. We have Turner at 30. But yeah, like it's another spot where I think I probably get a decent amount of Jackson at 4,400 as the backup center here. I doubt that I get as much as I'm getting right now. But Benedict Mathurin, Miles Turner showing up for me next. 22% Mathurin, 21% Turner. Fields only at 6% on Mathurin. We have him 11% to be optimal, so that's driving him up a bit. Fields 21% on Turner. I'm right around the field on them. Other than that, 9% Brown, 9% Halliburton. Happy to be over the field on Halliburton if I can get that here. It's always difficult when he's as expensive as he is and point guard only, but 2-3% owned in this spot. If I can get it, I would love to.
Yeah, it's almost like playing the Wizards is a good thing.
Yeah.
Why? Go ahead.
How many minutes do you have for Mathurin?
28.
Okay. We have 30, so we're not too far above that.
We have 30?
Yeah.
Man has played 30 minutes 1.5 times in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, 29.8. So again, that's why I'm getting 4 times the field on Mathurin. But if you take a couple minutes off, I would assume I'm still at like 10% or so.
Yeah. 25, 37, 30, 24, 27, 25, 24, 21.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought maybe I just like slept through a few Pacers games and not realized that.
I feel like I'm too high with 28.
26 was the number in my head.
Yeah. Yeah, I have 37% Miles Turner right now, but I mean, center's just nuke Washington. It's just as good of a spot as you're going to find for Turner to play 30 minutes. I got 5% of Isaiah Jackson too, so happy to have both of those guys.
How did you split the Turner and Jackson minutes?
I went 30-17.
Okay, yeah, I think you could anywhere between like 30-18, 32-16 seems reasonable for me.
Yeah. I tend to leave like one off of the backup guy because if I'm going to take anything away, if this game gets out of hand and there's a minute or two that goes to somebody else, it's neither of the two of them.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. I don't want to have this conversation, but I am getting to a really large amount of the Washington Wizards today, and it's really unappealing. They are getting some ownership. Call it 10% to Gafford, Gallo, Jordan Poole, and Denny, and then 20% ownership coming into Tyus Jones. Are you being a homer and rostering your Washington Wizards?
Unfortunately, and I wish I wasn't, but I mean, this game is just so good between two teams that don't play defense. Washington doesn't have any players good enough to actually be expensive, so that's nice in games like this as well. Tyus Jones, 19% ownership at 5,600. I'm getting the 52% right now.
Ooh, you're not that big of a homer, I guess. I got 55.
Okay, yeah. 49% Denny Avdia for me at 14% owned. We have him 21% to be optimal, so he's showing up a lot. Small forward, power forward. Getting to 21% Gallinari, which feels absolutely disgusting at 4K. Certainly the type of thing that is pretty likely to come down by lock, just as other things open up. 13% Kuzma, 10% Poole, small amounts of Daniel Gafford and Jared Butler.
I have 32% Gafford. So
that's more than my 2.
Yeah. 15% Denny, 21% Jordan Poole, and 55% Tyus Jones. I don't mind, like, if I'm going to have anybody, they're pretty close to the 4 dudes that I would want to be getting a lot of. We do have to talk about one interesting piece here. Q tag on Jordan Poole. If Jordan Poole ends up out, I think we're going to get a lot of Corey Kispert. I think Bilal Coulibaly starts looking a lot better. You feel a lot better about getting to Tyus Jones, about getting to Kyle Kuzma, about getting to Denny Avdia. It's a very different experience if Jordan Poole doesn't play this game.
Do the Wizards go from 8-point dogs to 4-point favorites?
It's the line. It would be funny if he got ruled out and the line fell, and like the Pacers were 6.5-point favorites afterwards. Right. It's just like, geesh. But yeah, like a $4,800. He's not a great per minute dude, but a $4,800 Kispert if Poole is out, I think becomes one of the bigger plays of the day.
That video I sent you of the guy missing all the layups at the whatever game it was last night. One of the replies was a poll, and it said, "Would you rather have this guy or Jordan Poole?"
That first shot that he took that just like went clean into the stands.
Into the tunnel.
Yeah. What in
that
the
was
world?
To me, that was almost worse or better than the second one, because that one, like, maybe he was sweating, it slipped out of his hand and whatever, but then he just like slams it off the backboard and misses again.
I had some questions on whether or not we were supposed to be laughing at that video or not, because I don't know if there's any like preamble to it.
Yeah, true.
So I didn't want to go too hard into the humor before we found out that we could.
It had to like be a bit like mimicking Stanley from The Office.
I don't know. It's that first dribble looks so much like someone that does not know how to play basketball would dribble, not fake. It was bad. It was so bad. I would expect KD to have a better performance.
I thought you said KD. I was like, me too.
No. Yes, too. But it was so bad. I've never seen anybody like it reminded me of all of the really bad like throwing out the first pitch people, like 50 Cent and Carl Lewis and stuff.
Except he got like the difference is like he got so many tries at it. Like
I've never seen anybody be that bad on like the fifth attempt. Just like stop, compose your like it's when push comes, like you don't have to. You're not hitting like fadeaway threes to try to do this. Like
you just have to get the ball to
toss a child's toy towards that backboard.
Right, you just need to get the ball to touch the backboard and go in the correct direction.
Yeah, so crazy, so crazy. So yeah, it's going to be Washington Wizards season.
Yes.
And then we get to Orlando. They are 6-point dogs in Boston, 223 total. For Orlando, we have the complicated nature of apparently Markelle Fultz might be back. He is questionable today. The good news is I don't think it matters. This team is barely owned. Fultz is leading the way at 6%. This is a terrible matchup. Boston doesn't play fast. They're a fantastic defense. And these guys aren't exactly priced cheaply. I don't have a single share of Orlando. Whether Fultz plays or not, I don't think that's going to change.
Yeah, I mean, we have Fultz projected in right now. I'm getting to 9% Goga, 3% Fultz. We do have Goga going a little bit under owned at 5,300. I have 9% of him where I only had 2% Gafford. I would certainly like to be getting a bit more Gafford than Goga, but it's just a spot where if I get to a little bit of him at 5,300, fine, but it doesn't stand out. I don't anticipate getting to much Orlando.
No, it's just a really, really bad spot. Now, the Boston side is a little bit different. There's no ownership coming into these guys, and we shouldn't be surprised there, but this is a back-to-back. There should be no expectation. Now, there should be no expectation that Al Horford is playing today. I think that's just a pretty safe assumption based on back-to-backs in the past. But with this line being 6 in Boston, my assumption is that we're getting somebody else out as well. Boston is like 6.5 points better than them in net rating already before we're even taking into account home court. So I think we might lose someone else. We might get that Jaylen Brown Q tag that we had from yesterday. Maybe we get KP not playing on a back-to-back, something along those lines. Luke Cornett missed yesterday, but none of that is actionable right now. Any one of the normal starters, I'm happy to have them in a lineup, but I don't think anybody looks good.
Yeah, same with assuming that they just played today. I have 2% Brown, 1% Drew, nothing else. Yeah, like I don't know how you prioritize them if everybody is in.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's real tricky. I got 5% Jaylen Brown, 5% Drew. We got to lose one of those 5 starters for anything to be interesting here. Fun game to watch, just based on what Orlando's been so far this season. But not a great DFS opportunity. Anything else for Boston?
No.
Underdog is the sponsor. You guys can sign up at Underdog, clicking the link in the description or in the chat. You can get up to $100 on your first deposit. They are a one-stop shop for all things in the pick'em fantasy realm. You get pick'em contests. If you're in a non-legal betting state, you get 20x your money. Daily fantasy contests with large field GPPs. Best ball. running hard right now on the NFL side. You want to be there for next year when they start running their other NFL contests or NBA, whatever you're looking for in the best ball streets. Plus, playoff drafts for the NBA, NHL, and PGA majors. If you're on the pick'em side for Underdog, you have the opportunity to use their free square. We've got Lamar Jackson higher than 0.5 total yards. It even includes his rushing yards. 0.5 total yards is the free square if you want to use that on Underdog on the pick'em side. Click that link and sign up. Get up to $100. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, though, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. The Los Angeles Lakers are 7.5-point favorites in San Antonio. We have a 234 total in this one. Q tag on AD, Q tag on LeBron, Q tag on Taurean Prince. Jared Vanderbilt is probable. Rui Hachimura is available. Only guys getting ownership are AD and LeBron at 12% and 16% respectively. I do think that they are the two guys you can get to. I can't imagine getting to anybody else from the Lakers unless one of them are out.
Yeah, I mean, I have like a Vanderbilt lineup, it looks like.
Yeah.
But 12% LeBron, 3% Davis for me right now. Wouldn't be mad if I was getting Tamor Davis. Nice spot for either of them. But LeBron on DraftKings is $600 less expensive. So I'm getting a bit more of him. So is the field at 16%. We have him about 13% to be optimal compared to 10% for Davis.
Yeah, it's just, unless we see one of these guys out, I don't see it for this one. Other than AD and LeBron. Like, those prices are totally fine. And Spurs, 23rd in defense, 5th in pace. Maybe that defensive rating is going to go up now that Wemby just has 9 stocks a day every time he plays. Speaking of Wemby, I think he looks pretty good today, but so do some of these Spurs. And they're at full strength. 25% ownership to Devin Vassell, 20 to Keldon Johnson, 15 to Victor Wembanyama. They ran a very interesting rotation coming out of their last game Wednesday against the Lakers, where Pop did the full line change in the first quarter. They got back to like normal scattered rotations. Wemby just continuing to go on block and steal parties. I have a pretty big chunk of the 3 main dudes here in Wemby, Keldon Johnson, and Vassell. What are you doing with the Spurs?
So one thing I think is really interesting is just kind of how to project Wemby at this point. I am getting to a lot of Devin Vassell at 40%. I'm getting to 17% Keldon Johnson right now. I'm not really getting to much else here, which I don't love. Vassell is pulling 26% ownership at 6,300. Keldon Johnson pulling 20%. So I'm over the field on Vassell. I'm a little bit under on Johnson, but Wemby's getting 14% ownership. I only have 3% right now. The thing that I think is difficult, or that I don't really know what to do. So like, we have Wemby right now projected for 1.44 DraftKings points per minute. For the season, he is 1.45 DraftKings points per minute. Without Zach Collins or Charles Bassey on the floor, in what is now 236 minutes, he's at 1.75 DraftKings points per minute.
Yeah.
It's not like, a lot of times you'll see somebody play, pick up a 10th of a fantasy point per minute or something like that if they're playing the 5 instead of the 4. This guy is producing at an entirely different rate, and you don't expect the gap to be that big long term necessarily, but it's getting to where I think not playing him at a much higher rate when he is playing center is a mistake.
I'm totally with you here. Like I said, I'm getting 19%. I am above that 1.4 or whatever fantasy point per minute number. We outlined it either yesterday or 2 days ago. It was probably 2 days ago since they played, but since moving him to center and not having him alongside Zach Collins for large chunks of time, they've doubled the amount of opportunities he has to contest shots at the rim. And you're seeing it in his block numbers. I think like 3 out of the last 4 games he's played, he's at least 4 blocks. He's just doing crazy things on the defensive end, has the highest block rate of anybody that's really playing a ton. Only Walker Kessler is really outpacing him there. You have to just project him a little bit differently. He's outstanding. Last 30 days, 1.6 fantasy points per minute. Like, that's even including a lot of that Zach Collins time still. He's really, really good.
Yeah, and
he's not even shooting well.
Right. Yeah, he's not playing well offensively overall.
No.
And as far as him and Collins too, this isn't even like Wemby is starting at center, but then he's still sharing the floor with Collins a lot.
Yeah.
He played 10% of his minutes last game against the Lakers alongside Zach Collins. He is getting like full center run. And he's just, and this isn't a knock, because this is one of those things that is just very difficult to project, because one, it's not like we have any sample size on Wemby beyond this year in the NBA. And so you're kind of trying to figure out what he is anyway. And then it's just like, oh, now he's just going to play a completely different position and he's producing at a massively different rate. Yeah. So it's difficult to confidently project, but it's enough minutes a center now where I think it's a mistake to treat it like it's all the same.
Yeah. Look, they're just, he's picking up like 3 fantasy points a game just from playing center and being able to stand closer to the rim and send people shit every time they come into the paint. Like, it's kind of nuts.
And like,
it's really kind of nuts.
And, like, obviously it's, talk, like, if you're not somebody that's done projections or doesn't like pay a lot of attention to it, saying, the 1.44 to 1.75, whatever, it doesn't sound like that much. So like right now we have Wemby projected for 48 DraftKings points in 33 minutes. If you were to change that to his rates just playing center, that 48 fantasy point projection becomes 57.8. Like that's how big of a difference what sounds like a small change is.
Yeah, I've got 49 and 32, so I'm a little bit higher. Like I've got an extra fantasy point and 1 less minute, so I'm a little bit more efficient on the per game rates. But he's just been, and like I might be light here too. When I do my reevaluation later, I might end up with more. He's thriving, and that is thriving by shooting 32% from the mid range and 27% from 3 on the season so far. When that just becomes not atrocious. He's a 1 point. He's like Giannis and Jokic and Embiid and Luka, and he's putting up crazy, crazy numbers, and then we believe it.
Right. And so that's the next thing I was going to say. To put in context again, this is where the assumption you could kind of go either way. Like maybe he starts to regress a little bit at center, or like you were saying, maybe he gets even better because he starts being more efficient as a scorer. But if you just call the 1.75 DraftKings points per minute that he's putting up as a center his average for the sake of what I'm about to say, you are essentially getting 32, 33 minutes of close to Joel Embiid at power forward at $88 or $8,900, whatever, 9,100 now.
But still.
Yeah, like it was 88 last game. 9,100 and 13% owned. If you've just made this guy's name, Joel Embiid, said Joel Embiid's going to play 32 minutes, the guy would be 70%.
Yeah. And the power forward piece is like the craziest piece of it here.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
He's still a fantastic play at just center. To include power forward is even more insane. So yeah, get yourself some Wemby if you can. 37% Vassell, 26% Keldon Johnson. I have both of those guys. A little bit of Malachi Branham, a little bit of Jeremy Sohan, but I like the Spurs side.
Yeah, I think I'm going to end up just manually, because I almost never manually adjust projections, but I just, if in general, and again, it's not the fault. Like I don't blame the industry in general for the way that they're projecting Wemby, because but like for me, I'm probably going to just bump this up because it makes sense for him to be a lot better.
Yes, it does.
And he's shown it over a pretty nice period of time now.
Yeah. Yeah. I expect him to be the same sort of offensive rebounder that he is. I expect him to be that same sort of defensive rebounder that he is. I don't expect much difference in his steal rates and his block rates other than just being elite. The only thing that we're missing out of Wemby is the fact that he's a 19-year-old rookie in the NBA learning how to play offense and shoot the ball. Like the thing that he isn't doing right now is the one thing where you can see the growth that just becomes exponentially crazy for him. We're getting the lowest form of his offensive ability and still projecting him as like a 1.6 fantasy point per minute guy.
Right. And even if you split the difference, again, just to get back to like how much this actually matters, even if you split the difference between what he has done overall and what he has done at center specifically, you're going from a 48 DraftKings point projection to a 52.6 DraftKings point projection for a guy that is 9,100 at power forward and sub 20% owned.
Yeah, if you say 52 fantasy points, call it 1.6x in 32 minutes. That's 5.6x his salary today. That is probably the highest per minute rate of anybody on the slate.
Yep.
Or at least very, very close to it. All right. Question is, are we really going to put a player from San Antonio in our lineups instead of Atlanta, Toronto, Indy, and Washington? Unlikely.
Yeah, I don't have a thing in my process that takes players out based on the abbreviation of their team.
No, not at all. But yes, based on everything that we just said, you and I are playing quite a bit of Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and you will be playing Victor Wembanyama 12 hours from now or whenever it is instead of right now, but I already have him.
Yeah, I mean, you already know that the DM at 7-0 whatever is coming. Shit, I forgot to adjust Wembanyama.
Yep, I have 2%.
Or I remember to do it and he like picks up 3 fouls in 2 minutes.
Yeah, got a baguette stuck in his throat or something before it started. Atlanta Hawks, 2-point dogs in Toronto, 244 total is another big old total. And I'm going to assume, based on everything I've seen, that I have all of the Toronto Raptors once again. But we're going to start on the Atlanta side. We still have to wait a little bit on some news here. DeAndre Hunter is questionable. 15% ownership to Capella, 15% ownership to Okongwu, single digits to everybody else. I got a little bit of Sadiq Bey since he is just playing minutes on minutes on minutes right now. I got a little bit of Okongwu too, but I don't have the Capella side of it. I don't mind whatever I get out of these starters. These guys just play big minutes.
Yeah, same. I'm getting a 22% Pirtle, 21% Anunoby, 19% Barnes, 11%
Atlanta.
Trent. What?
Atlanta.
Sorry, you had said Toronto right before I stopped listening to whatever else you said. On the Atlanta side, not getting as much as I am Toronto. 17% Capella is my highest owned guy, 7% Young, small amounts of Hunter, Okongwu, Bogdanovic. They're not as popular as Toronto for the field. They're not showing up as much for me. That $6,300 price tag on Capella is pretty nice though. And then I think, like you did say, any of the starters, if you are landing on them, are fine. But prices have come up a bit, especially on DraftKings.
Yeah, like if I get any Trey, that's cool. I don't think Murray's going to look all that awesome, but yeah, for right now, it's Bey and Okongwu. Great filler. Now, the Toronto side is a little bit different. 25% ownership coming into Schroeder, 25 to Gary Trent, 20 to Anunoby, 10 to Scotty Barnes and to Malachi Flynn, and 30 to Jake Puddle. I got a bunch of these guys. Got 30 of Barnes, 36 of Anunoby, 44 of Jake Puddle. I'm under on Schroeder. I don't have Gary. I have 1% Gary Trent. I don't think that he's going to be 26% owned either by the time we get to lock, but that's a different conversation. I thought I would get a lot more Pascal Siakam at 8,300 because I think he's just pretty underpriced for what this matchup is, but I only have 11%. Either way, I think you just have to have a lot of Toronto. Now, let me hear your thoughts on Toronto.
Yeah, so I'm getting to them a lot as far as like I have a lot of exposure to Toronto. I'm under the field for the most part right now, though. 22% Pirtle is my highest owned guy from this team. The field's at 30%. I have 21% Anunoby. The field's at 20. I have 19% Barnes. The field's at 12. So I am actually a bit over there. 11% Trent, but he's 26% owned. 9% Schroeder, but he's 25% owned. 7% Siakam, fields at 18. So in the aggregate, I'm getting a lot of Toronto, and I would expect to. It's a very good matchup against Atlanta. But compared to the field, I'm actually mostly under right now.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm over in a big way to Pirtle, Anunoby, and Barnes, and I'm okay with that. I don't ever get Scotty Barnes, and having 29% where he's 12, I'm happy.
Yeah, I kind of laughed when I saw it because right now the only player that I'm actually over the field on is Scotty Barnes. And the last time Toronto played Atlanta, so I guess Wednesday, I was taking an aggressive Scotty Barnes stand at 10 a.m. And I made the same comment you did that I never get Scotty Barnes, and I was excited about it. And then by the time we did the deeper dive, it's like, yeah, I have 2% Scotty Barnes.
All told, though, like Atlanta, 26th in defense, 3rd in pace. It's a fantastic matchup for the Raptors. It's a nice pace up spot, and all of their prices are just better now. Anunoby, by the way, I don't know if you said this, shooting guard, small forward.
Yeah, which is a nice change from the other day. They did bump his price basically 10%. He went from 5,800 to 6,400, but they threw the small forward on there too.
Yeah, so you paid for the flexibility, which is fine by me. They look really good here against Atlanta. I'm anxious to see if I can get to more Pascal Siakam because I do think he looks really good. All right, final thing that I want to touch on for today is going to be the promo code BOWL. And I know that is right up my alley, but this one is more along the lines of bowl games in college football. So if you want to get our college basketball and football packages, you can get it for 50% off right now using the promo code BOWL. Click the link in the description. That's going to be $7.50 for a week, $25 for the month. You got our college football projections and ownership and some advanced data all through the rest of bowl season. And you get our college basketball projections for the rest of the college basketball season. No-brainer offer for you on this one. If you're interested in college DFS, you're getting it for both sides of the coin, football and basketball. Link in the description. Jake DeWitt, back to Washington. Any Butler love if Poole is out? Yeah, I mean, I assume he's
Yeah,
like a value option.
yeah, because he's already a value option in the sense that like you can put him in a lineup and hope to get lucky. If Poole's out, there is clearly a lot of minutes available, and Butler is at this point, I think, in the rotation pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I wouldn't have tons of confidence in what he's going to do, but
No.
I think he would play enough minutes that at a close to minimum salary price tag, he's playable, especially in that game.
Yeah. 212 total in this Houston-Memphis matchup. As I mentioned before, 45 points below Indy, Washington, 32 below Atlanta and Toronto. The Rockets are 4-point favorites in this matchup. On the Houston side, we are waiting on the Q tag of Amen Thompson. Don't know how much it matters. Wow, I didn't realize this is where my ownership was. 15% ownership coming into Dillon Brooks, 21 to Jabari Smith. I have 69 and 59 respectively, hoping that goes away a little bit later. How do you want to handle this Houston team? They're kind of weird.
Yeah, ugly game environment again. I'm getting to basically two guys right now. I'm getting to Dillon Brooks and I'm getting to Jabari Smith.
Okay.
Pretty much even with the field on Smith. He's getting 21% ownership. We have him 16% to be optimal. 6K power forward, just pretty decent price tag for him. I have 23%. Brooks, 4,700, 15% owned. I have 24%. As stuff opens up, generally I start to lose Dillon Brooks because he's essentially just a minutes play where you're just hoping he runs into steals and knocks down some threes. But pretty unappealing game environment in general. Not getting much Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, Alperen Sengun, even though I would obviously be fine with that.
Brooks revenge narrative.
I mean, I said it last time, but
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm saying it this time.
Yeah, no, I'm saying like I don't know what he did, but I don't remember him doing anything that mattered.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I don't either. I need this
points.
ownership to go the hell away.
He had 11 points in 28 minutes.
Yeah, great.
11 actual
Okay.
points.
Yeah.
He played the entire fourth quarter with 1 rebound and 1 assist and 2 turnovers.
That's exactly what I'm looking for in 69% of my lineups.
That's a lot. He was in foul trouble that game, so the 28 minutes is low as you would expect. But
that's probably why it looks better for me.
Are you going to Tari Eason after his like 50 fantasy points off the bench?
I am not.
Yeah, me neither. 5,200, pretty tough. But he did have a massive game.
Yeah, back-to-back 26.5-minute affairs for Tari Eason, but I'm not expecting Jalen Green to continue to play 24 minutes a night. I also expect Alperen Sengun to play in the fourth quarter of games.
Yeah.
Just a guess. Do you see the rotation for the last game?
Yeah.
Those 5 guys that played are the only guys that played in the fourth quarter.
Yes, they are. Yeah, and I did a double take at the score. Like I was looking at it like, oh, was this garbage time or a competitive game? Because half of the closing lineup says garbage time and half of the closing lineup says competitive game.
Yeah, so weird. So weird.
Like, oh, Jeff Green did not play the entire game and then played the final 13 minutes.
Yeah, like, do we read into that? Is he out of the rotation? They went back to Landale?
Or did he just play his way back into the rotation?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Is he the new, like, he's just a designated closer now?
Maybe. The Grizzlies, what? Okay. We're going to have to get back to the drawing board on some of this stuff. I feel like you right now. I have your exposures this morning.
I only have one Memphis guy.
Me too, basically. But I cornered the market. This is like yesterday. I feel like I adopted this dude with this amount of ownership. 16% ownership coming into Derrick Rose. He's not the guy that I have. I mean, I have one share, but like that's not what we're talking about.
Now I can't imagine who you have.
I have 71% David Roddy.
Ow.
Big body Roddy, man. 4,600 small forward, power forward, playing big minutes. I don't know. That's it. That's all I got.
Okay. I have 1%.
I wish I did.
I have 22% Rose. That's the only guy I'm actually getting to. 5K point guard, not excited about it in this game, but it's 5K Derrick Rose. It's fine. I have 1% Roddy, 1% Bane, 1% Jackson.
That is a healthy amount of big body Roddy.
It is. Did you project Bane in?
Yep. Sure did. I have David Roddy at 0.77 fantasy points per minute. I didn't exactly fat finger him a 30% usage rate or anything. I got him projected for 9.5 points and 5.5 rebounds. He's just showing up in literally everything. Basically, I think that, you were like, oh, I have 20% of Danilo Gallinari. Like, you named a couple guys in this sort of range that you were like 2xing the field on. And I think I just cut all of that out and was just like, you know what? I'm just going to go just David Roddy instead. Yeah, I mean, like that. I'm well aware none of that holds by the time we get to it, but it doesn't make it any less true for me right now. How many minutes do we have Roddy at? Do you have that in front of you by any chance?
I will in a second.
Okay. That is a wealth of David Roddy. 26.5. Okay. I think I was a little too high at 29, so I'm going to walk that back a skosh.
The Derrick Rose, the fact I'm getting to so much Derrick Rose is a little concerning to me because we only have him at like 23 to 24 minutes and I have 22%. Like, yeah. If Bane were to get ruled out and that number comes up, I really don't want that much Derrick Rose in my life.
I went 23 minutes and I only got to 1%. I don't know how much he can play.
I mean, he played 31 last game.
Oh, damn. Okay. That is the jump up that I did not expect to see. I guess I looked at that incorrectly this morning. Or I guess I just didn't care.
Right. Like that was the game without Desmond Bane. So I'm not saying that I think Derrick Rose is just suddenly playing 30 plus a night, but clearly can do it for, at least a game or two before he goes back on the injury report.
Yeah. All right. You ready to close this one out with the game that shouldn't be on the slate?
Yeah.
The New York Knicks are 5-point dogs in Phoenix, 230 total. Everybody is available for the Knicks. That usually is. The Suns are slightly more complicated. Q-tag on Grayson Allen, Q-tag on Eric Gordon, no Josh Okogie. So 10% ownership to Quickly, Hartenstein, and Julius Randle. I have a very limited amount of the New York Knicks right now. I don't know how 12%. Like, let's have this conversation. And I understand that minutes matter. I have no idea how Victor Wembanyama and Julius Randle can have the same ownership today.
Because they're projected about the same.
Kind of. Well, yeah, they are. I see where you're going with this. They shouldn't be, but right. They are.
This is going back. I was actually thinking about Julius Randle when I was going into that whole thing on Wemby. Is that because I didn't know exactly what Randle was projected like. I actually forgot he was even on the slate at that time. But there's the way that Wemby has produced this year overall. And then the fact that he does generally play a couple less minutes than Randle, he's being viewed across the industry from a projection standpoint as another version of Julius Randle from a fantasy standpoint. And he is not.
No, not at all. Not at all. So I don't really have Randle here. I'm assuming you do, and that's going to piss you off.
No, I have 2% Randle.
Okay. Do you have
the only guy I'm getting to here is Hartenstein.
Okay. 5,100. What do you think for the split here? I went 21-27.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to be. Is Taj Gibson active today? Do you know?
I think I remember reading that he is not.
I just not that it would affect the way I project it, because I can't imagine you're actually giving Gibson minutes, but it would add the Tibbs absolutely loves this guy and could just screw all this up factor. But I think 21-27 makes sense. Hartenstein is also a much better point per minute guy in this bench role, which is nice from a fantasy standpoint. So I don't mind getting over the field on him. We have him 17% to be optimal, 12% ownership right now. So that looks pretty good. We have between 27 and 28 minutes to Hartenstein. So, maybe again, like I might prefer it being slightly lower, but nothing crazy. So I don't mind getting him at 5,100. But the Randle thing, and I don't mean it as a knock on Randle at all. Like, there's nothing wrong with playing Julius Randle pretty much ever at this price tag.
Sure.
It's just if he's going to be the same ownership as Wemby, my assumption is 2, 3, 4 months from now, when you look back and you're like, oh yeah, the field was playing $8,800 Julius Randle at the same rate as $9,100 Wemby with the same positional eligibility, and I wasn't really playing much Wemby either, I'm going to feel like an absolute idiot. It's going to look insane that the field is treating Wemby like Randle.
As best I can tell, he could be available for today. I don't believe that he has officially signed this contract yet. So,
What, are you holding out for other offers?
I don't know. He does not have a contract listed on Spotrac yet. So we'll see what that ends up looking like. They are usually all over this. Speaking of, I want to point this out for Memphis. Jalen Noel's 10-day ran out yesterday. So
That's interesting.
I don't think that he matters. He's played like 7 minutes the past 2 games. They just went back to Jacob Gilliard at the end of their last game, and that game sucks in general. But as best I can tell, Jalen Noel is not on Memphis any longer. Until they sign him again, I guess. But it expired yesterday.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure I put that out there.
Is Gilliard minimum salary?
Probably.
We don't have
36. 3,600. I gave him 18 minutes
out because he played 13 minutes in the second half last game. And if Bane were just out and you don't have Noel playing the first half, but
yeah, I went 18 minutes to Gilliard and I did not get to him.
Yeah.
Matthew Weinrich says, Morey agreed to a contract extension. Your insider is staying around. You think we didn't know that? He sent us a DM about those contract negotiations weeks ago.
Who do you think negotiated it?
Yeah. We know what we're doing here.
Marcus Smart is out. Einsteinium.
Huh?
Einsteinium said isn't Smart supposed to be back?
No.
I don't know how much longer he's out, but he is out today.
Yeah. So Phoenix, we don't know the status of Grayson Allen. We don't know the status of Eric Gordon. Josh Okogie is out. Bradley Beal played 30-something minutes on the second end of a back-to-back, so I think we can safely assume that he can just do that. There's no ownership coming into Phoenix. Maybe if Gordon and Allen are both out, you start to get to something here, but they look actively bad other than, to me, Durant is at least a little interesting at 9,800.
Yeah, I don't have a single lineup with any of them.
Same. I
don't really know how I would get there. Clearly Durant, Booker, Beal are capable of having big games. I mean, I guess a $6,900 Beal playing after coming off a 33.5-minute game is mildly interesting, but we have no idea exactly what the rates are going to look like with all three of these guys together. The very obvious assumption is Bradley Beal is the third option. So I have a hard time getting any of it.
Tyler Glass now to sign a 5-year, $135 million extension with the Dodgers, which means I assume that is he has deferred $130 million into the future, and he's a $1 million a year pitcher.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It's gonna be I'm really interested to see if anything is done about that in the next CBA.
I would imagine they absolutely put in something about the amount of money relative to the contract that can be deferred.
Because I said it to somebody on Twitter yesterday, this version of the Dodgers obviously is insane. It's going to be fun to watch, but it's also just unless they get super hurt or unlucky, they just basically walk to being the World Series favorite. But my concern is
it is baseball, so it's
right. Yeah, it's still the playoffs is random. But my concern is what are the future implications? Does this just become a thing where now you get Juan Soto next year as a free agent being well, I want to go win a ring with Freeman and Ohtani, so I'm going to does it just become the vet minimum where you have guys chasing LeBron around and agreeing to just not get paid?
Well, we will talk about all of this later because the NFL strategy show is coming up next. Good luck, everybody. We'll be back later on. Adam's got a video and an article for you today. Have some fun. We'll see you on the deeper dive. NFL strategy show is next.